All right. So today we are joined by one of everybody's favorite performers. He's a two-time Tony nominee who we love for his bits, his voices, his charm, and because he brought back one of Broadway's most beloved shows back from the dead. So welcome to Take a Bow, Alex Brightman. Hi, Alex.
What a beautiful, beautiful introduction that was. That
Oh my god.
truly was a heartwarming because you get, and I'm privileged enough to say that I've done a lot of podcasts that will give you an intro, and they're always the same. It's always just people reading your credits, and they go, and of course the wonderful whatever. And yours was so wonderfully crafted that I will this is going to go very well.
Oh my god, I love it. That's a great
Thank
start.
you.
I was worried I was gonna have to say your name 3 times in a row for you to appear,
I'm
but
really glad you didn't because
great.
it has become now a trite thing to do. So I'm glad you didn't do it.
Yeah, you're over it, right? I
I'm
figured.
not, no, I'm not over it. I'm not over it. I want to tell you, you're better than that, Eli.
Thank you. Oh my
Yeah,
god, wait, I'm
you're better
honored.
than that.
Well, this is gonna be so bad but so good
Yeah,
because you put both of us in a room together and we're having a conversation, and I'm just so thrilled. But the way I usually like to start these things is just to ask, everyone, why are we here? Like, this industry is
oh God,
crazy bonkers. What inspired you to want to perform and tell stories in the first place?
I don't know. No, I do know. It's just that I don't know if I have a huge controversial answer for this, but I think it's the right one, which is just like, unfortunately, I love this. I mean,
Yeah,
like, I wish I look at it every day. I walk around any city and I see somebody blissfully working at a hot dog cart. I'm like, why couldn't that have been my love? That looks so much easier than
yeah,
being vulnerable in front of thousands of people or trying to get your writing out there. What am I, crazy?
right.
So yeah, I think that why we're here is because we're all a little bit egotistical. We're all a little bit narcissistic, and if you don't agree with that, you're lying. But
Yeah.
number two, I just think we have some love that we continuously wake up with that we feel the need to talk about. I love talking about theater. I could do it. I would have done it without you today. I would have done it with my wife, or I would have done it with my dog. I talk about theater every day at some point.
I love it. The fun thing about it for me is, like, like you said, you walk past a hot dog stand and they're like, why can't that be me? But the fun thing about our job is that, who knows, one day it could be us. We're just doing it on stage or in front of a camera.
Or it will be us at that hot dog cart.
Yeah,
And I think there is the double-edged sword is like,
right.
I'd like to keep doing this thing that I'm doing because I know that I would have, like, I'd go one day working in, retail or whatever, which again, I know is a possibility. And I want to make that very clear because I don't rest on a nomination or two. I don't rest on the fact that people know who I am because that doesn't matter in this business that much. You still have to
Right.
audition and remind people that you're good. So I
Yeah.
am, and I'll just say this as a quick anecdote, is that during the dismount of Beetlejuice, near the end of it, I didn't have something coming up aside for some writing projects and stuff, which again, fun to work on. But Elizabeth Teeter and I, who played Lydia in the show, we talked about legitimately, not as a bit, not as a joke, applying to work at Shakespeare and Company so we could,
Oh,
number one, keep seeing each other, but number two, I need a job. I need to pay my
right.
rent. Like,
Right.
we don't want to admit that that's part of this, but like, it's fun. But I want to eat better than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day.
Right.
So I'm more than the hot dog cart thing is great, but like, I don't want to work at the hot dog cart.
Right, totally. It's like college student. It's like college life for our entire life. The work in the arts. I
Yeah,
love
why
it.
not? Yeah,
Cup of ramen
who in their right mind would sign up for this? I mean, this is
I know.
so ill
I-
advised and so satisfying at the same time.
right, but hey, it pays off. It pays off, and I
I
feel
think so.
like I think you've definitely chose the right career.
Thank you.
And thank you from us and everyone listening that, like, we've been graced by some of the most incredible performances that our generation, my generation, has been able to
Oh wow.
witness. No,
Well, good.
seriously.
I've tricked you. I've tricked you well. Then all of you. That's the big trick. That's the act.
Hey, you just fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So, you barged onto the scene in all of these wonderful shows. You know, you've done it all. You've done Glory Days, you've done Matilda, you've done Wicked. You did all of these fantastic musicals. Um, do you know, like, when you were first coming onto the scene and when you first made it to Broadway, you know, this glamorous world that we
Sure, sure,
think
sure.
it is, but
When
it's
you
just
when
theater.
you've made it, that's what everyone
Yeah.
believes. Right. Okay. Go ahead. I'm with you.
You know, was there anything that it was kind of, what was the biggest learning curve for you? Because, you know, theater, you're doing it, I'm sure you've done it before you made it to Broadway, but what was
Yeah.
the, when you made it to Broadway, like, oh, I didn't realize this was would be happening, or this is something that I didn't realize I'd have to do, or something.
I think the biggest lesson is all has to do with professionalism. I think it was,
Mm.
all the theater stuff is the same. Like I did community theater forever and high school theater and all that. It's the performing and the rehearsal is all the same. It's a bit longer. It's a bit longer. You're in maybe a nicer space if you're doing it on Broadway, but the performing stuff was like stuff I knew. That's where I felt most comfortable. It's like having to like finish a week of shows, have a day off, and then you go, "Wait, I have to do this again." Like
Yeah.
I'm so you the most shows I did in a row before Wicked, or
Uh-huh.
before I no maybe before my first professional gig, which was a play in Los Angeles, was like a weekend of shows.
Yeah, of
Like as
course.
most people do, community theater was like you do 2 weekends. You rehearse
Yeah.
for like 9 months, and then you perform 4 shows for your family, and nobody else comes. And now you rehearse a show in under a month, and you perform it for 2 years.
Right.
Um, and so it was about like longevity and consistency was like the big learning lesson for me. Like I didn't know how much you had to discipline yourself to
Right.
do the same show, and at some point, inevitably, it does here and there get old. I say here and there because it doesn't just continue to get old. You go through, spikes and peaks and valleys where you go, boy, this week I just don't even remember doing the show.
Yeah.
But the audience would never know that, thankfully. Um, but it's about consistency and how you get yourself up every day and ready to do the show that you've done 700 times. And so
Right.
that was the big learning lesson for me was like how to be a professional, how to be a businessman also at the theater.
And did that kind of increase that realization even more when you know, had to do Dewey and Beetlejuice? Like those two, you barely leave the stage. Like, were you like talking during the day? Like, did you have to change, you know, did you have to exercise? Like what happened off stage to get ready for that?
Thankfully, are those pit stains? Jesus Christ.
You look
Um,
great.
thank you so much.
You're
Uh,
so welcome.
uh, Thankfully, I didn't have to exercise for School of Rock because the show did that for me. I mean, I
Yeah,
legitimately
exactly.
was dropping weight to a dangerous amount. I gained a little bit for the show to look schlubby, but then like that was
Wow.
gone within 2 months. I mean, I became like fitter than I've ever been. Uh, but vocally, my life had to completely change. During
Yeah.
School of Rock, I didn't do everything I did on stage. I would do the complete opposite in the daytime. I would rest longer.
Wow.
My breakfasts were enormous because I couldn't eat at some point. If I ate too
Yeah.
late in the day, I would, food would start coming up in the middle of the show. Like breathing so hard and because you're right, I never left the stage in School of Rock. Beetlejuice
Right.
became slightly easier because I had done the leading man thing, so I kind of had a couple of things were on autopilot,
Right.
but that was its own different like experience of like not waking up crazy, like not waking
Yeah.
up with the show still on me. Like I think
Yeah.
the big learning lesson there was like how to take the show off every night.
Mm.
Like not just the makeup and costume and wigs, but how to take like the energy of the show. Because if you've seen it or if anyone's, it's just was like it's not normal. Well, it's not normal what we do anyway, but that on top of it was like then playing that character and then having to like leave the stage door as a human
Right.
and then go home and be like a husband and then
Right.
go home and like walk my dog. Like it just doesn't seem like that's the thing. Like you think you're just going to like continue on partying.
Yeah.
So my life does change when I'm in a show just because I have a family and I have things to do. And so I had to find out late. I'm 36 and I didn't find this out till about 34 that
Right.
you have to rest.
Yeah.
So rest is not only like a lazy, wonderful thing, but it's important. So that's like the big learning lesson.
And what about, like, you know, when you know, you kind of said that Dewey was your first leading man thing, and I guess, you know, consistently every night it totally was. But like, how is that for you in navigating? taking on so much? Like, how did you learn how to not take on everything? You have to do all these press things and all this, especially during the Tony Awards. Like,
Oh man,
how do you kind of manage that as like a first timer leading man, I guess?
what an excellent question, by the way. I
Hey,
don't I
thanks.
don't know if I've ever gotten that specific question. So I'm always on the lookout for like who is asking the generally you're genuinely interested in this answer, and I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Um, I didn't do it well. So
Oh
that's the answer. Is I took on way too much. I said
yeah.
yes to everything that they asked of me because it was my first time doing this. So I didn't want to disappoint anyone, and I put
Right.
everyone on the same page. So like
Yeah.
producers, fans, family. Like I didn't have a priority list, so I just wanted to
Mm,
please everybody. So I think really like when it came to like the Beetlejuice of it all, I learned the power of no, which I'm
yeah.
still way learning and I'm not good at it. Like I want to say yes to everybody. I want to read everybody's scripts that they sent, and I'm still doing a bad job at it, to be quite honest.
Right.
Like I have started to learn the power of no, but the real power, and I think if anyone listening wants to hear a real superpower to develop, the power of not I'm busy, but I'm not interested.
Right.
Because you really only have one career, you have one life, and the thing you say yes to takes time away from everything else.
Mm,
So all of a sudden you go, what is really worth it? And not to say that certain things aren't worth doing, but sometimes you're just not interested. And
yeah.
that's okay. But it doesn't
Right.
feel okay because you have to say yes because you're a performer and we like, people to like us. So you say yes a lot. So I think the power
Yeah.
of no is still a learning lesson that I'm sort of still kind of trying to figure out.
Right. And I asked that question because, like just recently I've kind of discovered that too. Cause I feel like when I was first, like on my first national tour, I was always told to say yes, and make sure that you always say yes to everything because you never know where it could lead you, type of thing.
Yep.
But then when I came to New York and I came to Broadway and everything like that, I was doing like 4 things at once, and I wasn't even, I didn't have a show named after my character, so I was like, I was exhausted, and I
Yeah.
was still trying to figure out how to go to school. So I genuinely asked that in the sense of like, how did you finally allow yourself to become okay? Because I think that's the biggest thing is it's us. We have the power to say no, but it's us letting ourselves say no. And so listening to you kind of learn that and how you discovered that and went about it is quite interesting.
It doesn't, yeah, it's a very mature thing that I think a lot of actors need to learn early because we are by nature immature people because we get up in
Right.
front of people and be silly. And so we have to like turn on, like switch your hat around to like
Yeah.
businessman hat to like really negotiate. Like, am I going to be exhausted by the end of this? Because I
Right.
can't be because I have a show to do tonight. So like you
Yeah.
have to say no to things to do the thing that's actually important, you know?
Right.
Well, the
The
thing you're
one that
being paid for, the
yeah,
thing you
exactly.
have to deliver. I mean, everything else is good and for the show, and you want to get more eyes on it. But at some point, I mean, we're humans. We bend really far, but we are breakable.
Yeah, for sure. And we tend to sell ourselves short at times,
Yes,
especially breaking into it all.
of course.
So I'm curious, you have a career before School of Rocket and Beetlejuice, but
Sure.
I didn't get to see you in any of those. So forgive me for not asking you those show specific
Shame on you.
questions.
Shame on you.
I'm sorry. When you were in Matilda, I was performing, and I didn't live in New York before then, so
That's okay.
I
You get a
can't.
pass.
Thank you, thank you. But I have got to ask because I'm obsessed. First of all, everyone in School of Rock, I'm obsessed with. Those kids are an absolute delight. Diego Lucano, Luca Padovan, Ethan
The best.
Kuzman, like, oh my God, what a bunch of incredible performers and
Truly,
musicians and talents. They can do it all.
they can do it all.
But I loved the show, and all I've wanted to ask you was, did you personally, like, I know every kid had their own specific instrument that they were already musically trained in and everything.
Sure.
Did you have to learn any of that? Because you kind of like showed them in the show, but was that really you playing?
It was really me playing. I
Oh, wow.
played guitar. Yeah, I mean every instrument that was in the show was live. I mean there was no instrument that was there as a prop. Every instrument on stage was tuned.
Oh my
We
God.
had a person backstage constantly tuning guitar. So like everything, all the things people were saying was like, the kids sound so good that it can't be real, right? And
Right.
so they were. I mean, I was heads and shoulders the worst instrument player of anybody in that show. I knew guitar. I played guitar since I was a kid, not in any sort of obsessive way, but I
Yeah.
knew enough to get along. I was in a band or two, like in high school, just to be in a band because I wanted to beat girls.
Yes.
And it did. And by the way, didn't work out. And
It'd
so
be like that.
when it became School of Rock time, like when it became time to actually do this, I did get back into lessons
Uh-huh.
to learn a little more about soloing, like to learn a little more about music theory of it all. Cause I knew like power
Ah,
chords and like punk music. And so a
sure.
little of the soloing was brand new to me. And I would really lean on like Brandon Niederauer or, some of the other guitar players in the show to help me out. Cause these
Mm.
kids started playing guitar when they were a fetus. I mean, like
Yeah.
crazy. And so,
Literally.
yeah, it was the only instrument really that I was slightly proficient at. So
Interesting.
that was good and that was helpful. And that was one of the reasons I think they took notice of me, is that they knew that I
Hmm.
already had like a working knowledge of the guitar.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I truly, and I mean this, like though I was the bottom of the list of instrument of people that played
Get
music
out
in
of
the show.
here.
I was. I'm not being humble. I'm not saying this for any effect. Genuinely and educationally, the worst player on stage.
Wow. You couldn't tell.
Good.
You
Well, that's the
sold
idea.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and again, that's not to say I was a bad player.
Right.
I was in no way close to these kids.
Yeah. I mean, these kids are still doing it though. Like this is their profession now. I see Brandon traveling all over the
Oh
world,
my god, it's
on
crazy.
tour doing it. Yeah,
Well,
yeah. It's
they're all like they've lapped me now. They're all 45 years old, and they look.
right.
I mean, it's great. Anytime I see them now, it like I still can't get over the fact. I was like, you were a baby when I met you.
Yeah.
You were a baby, and now look at you. I mean, you're adults that have something to say, and they're all just incredible. I love seeing them out in the wild.
Yeah. I've got to ask, like, I don't know. We've heard these things on Broadway before where it's like, don't work with dogs and don't work with kids.
Yeah,
So I got to ask, I mean, you did it with Matilda and School of Rock, like, and I guess Beetlejuice too.
yeah,
But what was that kind of like? Did you kind of have any added pressure to, kind of be a leader because they probably just automatically, without even knowing, just looked up to you? Did you
sure.
ever, what was that process like in working with them?
Well, the funny answer, but it's true, is that I had to really curb my swearing and
Of course.
because I swear a lot, and I try to be better at this, but I have just a filthy, comedic sensibility and sarcastic. So you had to lock that up. We all did as a building. We all kept each other in check as the adults to
Oh, that's
really,
so funny.
and within reason, because these kids are older and older as they go these days. So these were like old
Sure.
soul 10-year-olds.
Hmm.
But so that was number one. To be a good leader, you had to like also be a kind, gentle person.
Right.
So that was a muscle that I had to kind of learn. Uh, but very quickly, I realized, because I didn't have a lot of experience around kids. I don't have like younger siblings and any real. I now have nieces and stuff, but
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
I didn't really know how to act with kids. I didn't know how to converse with them. So I started at the base level, which was like, "What's your favorite color?" And they were like, "What?"
Stop it.
Well, like, seriously, because I didn't know.
Right.
I had no clue what way in it to a 10-year-old, because I'm
Of
so
course.
not a 10-year-old. But they very quickly just were like, just talk to us. And they were really as helpful to me. And I looked up to
Mm,
them big time, especially with like how to deal with, they're humans. They're little humans. The fact that we're at different ages was a pretty negligible fact.
yeah.
So it was cool. And they did help me feel like a leader, which helped with
Hmm.
the Beetlejuice of it all as well, to like not just know that on stage you're the number one, but like you lead the building. And if you lead the
Yeah.
building well, the show gets better. And so that
Right.
helped. That helped with experience. And they were, I mean, kids will give you instant feedback. If they don't like what you're doing, they will let you know. And so it was good. It
Sorry
was
about that.
sometimes a little painful, because you're like, oh my God, I genuinely hurt this kid's feelings and I am in my 30s. But they taught me a lot of stuff. They taught me a lot about comedy. They certainly taught me a lot about instruments. And I think that because of their faith in me as a leader, I
Yeah.
think it really gave me the confidence to also consider myself one. because
I love it.
before that you're part of an ensemble, and
Right.
that's good and that's safe because you're part of
Yeah.
like the same group. When you're leading a show, it is slightly isolating, so it is nice to have that backup of people that say we believe in you.
Yeah, especially because, like, you sign up for it and you're like, "Oh, great, I'm gonna be the lead of the show," and you
Right.
forget everything that comes with it, you know? Yeah, there's a lot more than just being the lead, which is
Yeah.
memorizing all kind of material and
Oh,
stuff.
it's crazy.
Madness. But this whole industry is so it's great. I got to talk to you about these two Tony performances because both
Okay.
with Beetlejuice and School of Rock. I mean, I think the Beetlejuice one is perhaps my favorite Tony performance ever.
Mine
It was
too.
just so brilliant. Did you write that, or did you have like a group of writers or any of it improv? Like what? How did you that all come about? I guess.
See, I'm an improviser at my core,
Yeah.
but it would be so against everything I believed to improvise anything on live television in front of
Fair
millions of
enough.
people. So we really, all those performances that we did with Beetlejuice where we changed the lyrics, because that wasn't the only time we did it. We did it on the Today
Oh.
Show. We changed
Yeah.
lyrics all the time. And so the improv brain for me helped with that because it's ill advised again to like do different lyrics of a show you're doing that night on
Right.
in the morning. But no, they Eddie Perfect, who wrote the lyrics of the show, he
Did he?
contributed. Oh yeah, I mean he could not contributed. He basically did those. I mean, so we would go back and forth. I would say that I helped 10%
Oh
with the
my
sort of
god.
the rewriting of stuff, just to make because I'm the one out there doing it, and so if it didn't feel right, we would talk about it. But yeah, I mean, we it was a collaboration for sure, but they really did a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff that people love in the show that are like, you must have come up with that. No, I didn't. It was a very, very good script that I was able
Yeah.
to run with and get latitude with, but the writers are owed a ton of credit for the show. Tons.
Yeah, I love the show. I think
Same.
the show is brilliant, and I was thrilled to have an afterlife for the show as well. Because I had only seen it like once or twice at the Winter Garden, but then I got to see it a few times just because Elizabeth and everything.
Yeah.
I love her.
Same.
She's the best. So yeah, but that Tony performance is like one of the ones that I'll never forget. You were just calling people out in the audience. You started in the audience, just in a seat. It was just like it was Adam Driver killed Han Solo like that. Like it was
Everyone loves
just
that line, and everyone
so brilliant.
so many people are like, did you improvise that line in the moment? And I was like, do you
Yeah,
know anything about anything? Like I think I'm okay at
yeah,
improvising. I think I'm pretty good at it actually, but in no way would I trust myself to like look out into the audience and go, let's see how I can rhyme and also
yeah.
pick someone out. No, I mean, it's all the writers, and the Adam Driver thing came out of, I mean, I had nothing to do with that. I just had to deliver it properly, and
Oh my
I think
god.
it went well. But yeah, that performance is it's got like the most views I think of
Yeah,
any performance that's like ever been on the Tonys. It's great.
as it should. But
Oh,
that also has a huge I don't know, that's like a kind of a testament to your Beetlejuice fans. Your
big
Beetlejuice
time.
fans were bonkers. They were like a cult, like
Oh yeah,
low
I mean, I
key.
say we say it lovingly all the time. I mean, I say all the time, like the Beetlejuice fans are out of their minds, and I say that in a good way. I mean, I say that in like, I mean, obviously there are limits, to fandom, and like people can get upset, but that's everything.
Right.
That's not just like special to Beetlejuice, but yeah, the fans of Beetlejuice, which I made the wrong assumption. I thought they were going to be incredibly nuts to a point that was like unfavorable and unsavory. They were so
Oh,
warm and continue to be,
yeah.
and supportive and not. I mean, speaking for what I have experienced, just incredibly kind and love something.
Yeah.
It's not always an obsession. I think for people, and I think people can look at it like obsession, but I think it's just real, genuine love of this show that catered to misfits. You know,
Yeah.
and especially with this younger generation, that makes me sound 1,000 years old when I say that. But
Stop it.
with the younger generation, like all you have to do is scroll TikTok for 10 minutes, and you
Right.
understand how vulnerable and confident, but sad and scared
Mm.
this new generation is. And I think that like Lydia and the darkness of the show and the weirdness and the embracing of the weirdness really struck a chord with these weirdos. And
Absolutely.
as a musical theater person, I'm also a weirdo. Right. So like
Right.
it was a nice home. It was a nice inclusive home for like this island of misfit toys to commune.
Yeah, and you guys really kind of played into it and embraced them,
Oh yeah,
to help that fandom. You had that wall in the marquee, which was one of the coolest things I've seen of the
so
fan
cool.
art. Yeah, and you guys were making, these TikTok videos and all these things. Like, did you ever, when I guess this whole TikTok thing was starting, and Beetlejuice became a hit on TikTok, did you know what was happening, or did Presley or whoever
It's
kind of
Presley.
just pull you in and be
Yeah,
like, "Hey,
it's
you want to
Presley.
do a video?"
Yeah,
It was
It was solely Presley Ryan
really,
who basically saved the Winter Garden run, and I say
yeah.
that I don't say that lightly. I mean, I didn't. I went from not knowing what I believe at some point I called TikTok Tic Tac,
Oh my god.
because I didn't know what it was. I didn't have it. I was like, this is 100% not my deal. Like this couldn't be less what I want. And by the way, I've turned a corner on it. It's like my favorite app in the world. Um,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I'm not on it. I'm not on any social media like in any sort of contributing way anymore. Like I don't. I'm not
Right.
on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but as like a viewer. Like I don't have a screen name. I don't have a
Yeah.
page. But yeah, Presley Ryan just asked me to do these things, and it was fun. And I love Presley, and I loved everyone in the building. So
Oh,
happy
that's
to do it.
hilarious.
I had plenty of time, and also like we started to see the results
Yeah.
of reaching out and connecting with the fans in this way. So if we didn't do it, we'd be crazy. I mean, it was just like it helped the show, and it continues to help the show. I'll get tagged and stuff all the time still.
Yeah, I'm sure. And even like, you didn't like make it happen, but in the afterlife, I guess, at the marquee, it continued. Just kind of, maybe it was organically, but maybe you guys kind of planned it out with the bows. The bows just became this
Oh,
huge viral sensation between you and Elizabeth.
I don't
Do you have
remember. Oh, go ahead.
go,
Answer. Go
do you
ahead.
have a favorite one?
Well, first of all, I legitimately, I'm sure Elizabeth will remember. I don't remember when we decided this was going to be like a thing that we did.
Uh,
Like, we just started
yeah,
doing crazy stuff anyway at the bows because I think bows are a little silly. Like, I think that I just personally think bows are like
sure.
a little silly when they're like drawn out. Uh, so, this was my way of sort of like counterculturing bows. Like, I took it and reappropriated it in some silly way of like, and Beetlejuice was the perfect show to do it. And Elizabeth
Right.
got right on board, and
I love it.
as she does, she's one of the most creative human beings I have worked with in a long time. And
Um,
so we just kept this list running. Favorite bow. I mean, the lightsaber battle was super intricate, and we had rehearsed it a couple of days in a row to get it right.
oh
I
my
think
god.
truly, I mean, we took these our intermissions, like when most people rest. Our intermissions was figuring out and choreographing what the bow would be that night.
Oh my
So
god.
we're nutcases. I think maybe my favorite bow. There's a very specific one where we're both wearing glasses and pretending like we're like celebrities and like
Oh
being like,
yes.
that maybe because it made me laugh and it still makes me laugh to watch it. Like there's footage of it, and when I watch it, it's like Elizabeth and I, like one of our favorites because it just was so random but it worked out well. It hit the way we were hoping.
Oh my god.
There's
I'm
a million of
obsessed.
them. They're so fun. I
There
wish we could
are.
continue. I mean, that was the best.
Yeah, did you guys ever feel like you guys were running out of ideas? I feel like that would be so like, oh my god, I feel like that's stressful, like
Constantly.
figuring it out.
We were constantly scraping for ideas,
Yeah.
and someone would mention something and we'd be like, oh, that's a good idea. We got to the point where Elizabeth would go on like an Instagram live or TikTok, I don't remember, some kind of live thing
Oh my
and
god.
ask. And so because we're just like, we're out of ideas, but we're happy to like do whatever. So we got great ones. We got like, we got a lot of dangerous ones like lift Alex in the air above your
Right.
head. But no, we got some great
Hilarious.
ones. We got really truly some great ones
Oh my
from
god.
people online, and why not, right? It was just for them anyway. A
Exactly.
little bit for us, but we for the most part wanted people to like stick around, like
Yeah.
for the bows and enjoy them. But yeah, no, we were constantly running out of ideas. I think
Oh,
we didn't leave many on the table. We tried to do as many as we could before we left, and we kind of knew what we were going to do for the last one for a little bit. We kind of
oh my
knew
god.
that was going to be slightly emotional. We didn't want to do something too silly. Uh,
Mhm.
there's a couple we didn't get to do. There's a couple like we couldn't make happen. Like we wanted a special guest We
Oh.
wanted to like rise up on the lift with like someone insane, like someone like Jason Derulo.
Right. Oh my god.
Which would,
That's
is
crazy.
a callback to like part of the show. We wanted to have one where like Billy Crystal and Kristen Chenoweth would come up and not us.
Oh my
Like we wanted it to
god.
just be them and them come take the bow and then us not even take a bow.
Stop it.
So there was a lot of those that we couldn't figure out, mainly because of COVID. Like we couldn't do like a guest in the building. So,
Right.
but no,
And
for the most part, we got them all done. So
like, did you have to get this stuff approved by stage management or anything before doing it?
yes, some of them probably we should have for sure.
Oh my god.
Some of them we did because like I brought a cell phone on stage to film one of them.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
we had like a bubble machine on one of them, and we wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that like the bubble, like the liquid, wouldn't get into like the tracks of the stage, like
All
and
right.
mess. So like a couple things we just double checked, but for the most
Yeah.
part, they were very very cool about if we let them know in advance what
Yeah.
needed to happen and how we could do it. So they were very helpful for the most part. We didn't get a lot of no's.
I love it. I mean, this show's called Take a Bow, so I'm eating it up, Like I think it's brilliant. Every time you guys did like a really fun one or whatever, or like one that would go viral, I would always mention it here and like play it for everybody. It was
You know what we should
hilarious.
have done? We should have had you come backstage and
Oh
do
my
a
god.
podcast with us, and then lift up with us and continue doing the podcast as we were bowing, and then
Stop it.
continue it back into the dressing room, like as like it's part of the podcast. That would have been incredible.
That would have been iconic. Oh my
If we
god,
ever
for
do it
so many
again,
reasons.
if we
We're
ever
gonna
do,
make it happen.
if Beetlejuice goes to the West End or whatever, and we do it there, then we'll take you with us.
Perfect. Yeah, and I love Elizabeth, and we're talking about her, so I've got to mention I was texting with her last night, and she wanted me to ask you a very specific question, and you don't have to answer this if you want to,
Go ahead.
but she wants me, and I guess she wants me to ask you, and she wants you to explain
Oh
the
boy.
time that she broke you on stage.
So I don't know if I remember one very specific one. I don't know if I don't know if she mentioned a very specific one or not.
She did it. She said that she said what she said was wait a second. I have to find this because I
Yeah,
wrote this down.
find it.
Um uh wait a second.
Take
It's
your time.
okay. So okay, here it is. She said that it was the first time he's broken in 3 years, and he
Yeah.
even called his wife to tell her the news.
Yep.
Care to explain?
Yeah.
She said she holds it over your head. So I don't know if you maybe know if that
Well,
rings a bell.
I mean, certainly one of them rings a bell. I don't know if she's referencing something even more specific than this, but there's a moment in "Say My Name." I mean, we were constantly. I was trying to break. It's like my side mission in every show that I do is to like break everybody, just because it's fun. And some people are much more breakable than others,
Oh yeah.
and she was pretty easy. All I had to do was pretty much make eye contact with her, and she would start laughing.
I love
But there
it.
was just one moment in "Say My Name" right before she pushed me off the roof, where I get very
Uh-huh.
close to her. So like we're in profile for the most part, so the audience sort of can't see our eyes, and she just looked up at me and like was a little cross-eyed, and she never did it before. And I was hoping never again because I was going to keep laughing, and I just couldn't get the rest of my lyrics out until I fell off the roof, and I started laughing,
Stop
and
it.
she started laughing. I would also start laughing like if I broke her big time, like if I did something very new and she just completely lost. Like it would watching her laugh would break me as well.
Right.
But also, we're just in the perfect show to do it, right? Because it's
Right.
like nobody is going to go, wait a second, they're actors, Um,
Yeah.
so
It's not like in Les Mis you'd try to do that or something.
right. I think that was, I mean, that's the one I remember immediately when you say broke. Cause it's again, I genuinely don't typically break on stage. I do the breaking.
Really?
And so, yes, I remember I called my wife and I was like, I haven't laughed as Alex Brightman on stage it
Stop
probably
it.
was over 3 years. Cause it was just like, and it's a surreal feeling and it makes it feel super live and it's super nervy. It's like very nervy, but boy,
Yeah.
did it make me feel alive for sure. So
Oh my
she's
god.
the first one. And I imagine for a long time, maybe she will be the one that holds the mantle for breaking me on stage.
She was so proud of it, telling me about it. She just was going on and on. She was like, "No one does it." I was so happy. I hold it over his head, like I
Well,
was like, "Oh my god."
for anybody who's wondering about Elizabeth Teeter, which you should because she's worth watching and wondering about, is that she is because Lydia's was funny and had its own little quirkiness to it.
Mm.
Elizabeth Teeter, I'll go on the record and say this, is one of the funniest people
Yeah.
I have ever had the pleasure of talking to, knowing, and performing with. And I don't say that because we're talking about her right now. I say that because it is true. I don't know if I know many other funny people like her who could
Yeah.
genuinely get a laugh out of somebody. And this is coming from somebody who prides themselves on being a comedian. I don't know if there are many other funny people like her.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like so like genuine. Like she doesn't like actually try to be funny or
At all.
like, it's just all comes from such a she has such a good heart and
And
it's like
she's
always
fearless.
from a well placed. Yeah,
She
totally.
is. She's fearless, which is like, again, like when you see somebody who's fearless like you, like I've met my match. I was like, oh, okay. So I don't need to teach her a damn thing. She is,
Oh.
I mean, she was immediately such a good sparring partner on stage.
Oh,
It's one of the things I miss it the most is not being able to hang out with her all the time. Even
I
though we
love
live
that.
pretty close to each other now, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She was telling me about that. That's so cool. You guys, she talks about you all the time. Like, there's not a
Ugh,
conversation.
she's like
You know,
obsessed with me.
she is obsessed. But there's literally not a conversation where she like
It's
doesn't bring
mutual.
up Alex or something. Yeah,
It's
she
mutual
adores
obsession.
you. I love this relationship that you guys have. It's so cute. And that's what we love about theater. We
Oh
really
yeah.
become a family. It's like it's beautiful.
And you find friends, late in life, which is a thing that
Yeah.
not a lot of people get the privilege to have. And I think like if you're just work like a job in a cubicle, like how
Mm,
often do you get to meet a new friend with what you do? So
right.
doing new shows means that you get this new group of people to like figure out, and so some of them become your friend. And I, as a person who doesn't have a ton of like friends, like I have a lot of acquaintances, and I would be
Right.
friendly with people, but friends, right? I mean, that's a big word. And
Yeah.
so I think that it's cool when you meet somebody like Elizabeth and you go, it's nervous making because you go, wait, is this a friend now? Like, are we friends?
Yeah.
This is kind of cool. Um,
Yeah, how does this work?
Unexpected. Yeah, it's unexpected.
Right.
It's rare that you have to do friendship, you know?
Right, right. But it's great because the universe kind of puts them right where they're supposed to be, Like, we don't
Absolutely.
have to go to a bar and try to make friends,
That's what
Like,
I mean. Right.
yeah, it's just it's great.
That's what I
They're
mean.
built-in friends.
Yeah.
Um, well, I've got to talk to you before we leave the Beetlejuice chat. Um, I, as a performer, just admired this performance from so many levels. The work that you put into this was so evident. And every night, 8 shows a week to be able to do this was, I don't know, it had to have taken a lot of work and dedication, and you did it brilliantly. So
Thank
this
you.
voice that you did to sound like Beetlejuice and everything,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure people ask you about it. You know, I'm curious. Did you go into the audition room with this voice, with this character already, like we saw on stage, or is that something that kind of developed over time, or what was that?
But kind of both and neither a little bit. Just kind of the audition came late. I was like sitting at home and it was like 6, 7 p.m. And I got this thing that was like, hey, they're auditioning a bunch of guys to play Beetlejuice and they want you to come in tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Which is
What?
fine. Which is fine. I mean, like for me, it's like that's fine. I don't mind. I love coming in for things. I have an improv core. I'm all about like, okay, sure. I mean, you asked me. They know this. They know they asked me the night before, so it's not like they're not going to come in
Yeah.
expecting perfection. So I did as much as I could, but I also knew that Beetlejuice was a demon and a monster, so it couldn't sound like me. I People forget that my voice is actually pretty high.
Yeah.
And because I've done this now for so long, people just assume that I sound like Beetlejuice, which is not true. But I came in trying my best to do something that felt like gravelly and monstrous, and it killed my voice. So when I got the
Oh,
part, I was excited for the reading and workshop, but I was equally terrified because I was like, how can I keep this up? I don't know if I can.
yeah.
So I worked with a vocal coach and I worked with a vocal pathologist,
Mm.
who taught me exercises to do in and out, inside and outside the rehearsal process, and was scoped twice a month
Oh,
by an ear, nose, and throat doctor just to make double sure and triple sure that I wasn't doing long term damage. And over the course of like about a year, off and on, I think I like found the way to do the 2.5 hours of the show.
wow.
Um, and then get some rest in between, or navigate in certain ways if I was having a day where I was feeling vocally under. And the longer we got to do it, which again, that's very privileged. You don't get to do a show this long like this and figure it out, the
Yeah.
more comfortable I felt trying stuff. And so it just got stronger. I mean, like the more I felt comfortable doing it, I could do tons of stuff with it and do it for longer. which is great.
Right.
Except now that I'm not doing Beetlejuice, it's like basically like a party trick that nobody cares
Right.
about. Except for the fact that it did lead to a ton of voiceover work, which is like really
Oh,
was one of the unexpected sort of perks of learning how to do this with my voice, and helped me want to discover other voices to do, which I never thought would be kind of
yeah.
part of this. I was very into musicals and theater. I was like, animation, I don't let other people do animation, but I
Wow.
enjoy it. I love doing voiceover, and it's become another part of my life. So it's been fun.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, but you kind of say, earlier you were kind of talking about people forgetting that you have like a higher voice or what you sound like. But it's so true because like when I go see a show, and even if someone has like an accent or like a dialect that they have,
Yeah.
like it's easy to slip in and out of it. Maybe you drop the ball on one of the lines or whatever. But like every time you spoke or sang, it was there, like you never weaved in and out of the voice or the bit or anything, you fully committed 100%. And I think that it's a testament to your performance,
Well,
people
thank you.
forgetting.
I
Yeah.
try, and I've said this before, and I want to inspire others to try this. Even in, it doesn't matter what part you play in a show. Is like my goal in any show that I do now, and it wasn't always a goal. With School of Rock, it began. I would like to do something that seems impossible. Like when
Yeah.
you see the show, you should walk out going like, the show was good, sure, or bad or whatever. Um, but undeniably, something that Alex did, you're like, how the hell did he do that? Like, I want
Yeah.
people to feel, but also equally like inspired to like try and find something. If you're an actor, like that should be your like extracurricular goal, is to find something
Mm,
that's not going to kill you. I mean, it shouldn't feel like you're overcoming any sort of adversity to do it,
sure.
but to like figure something out that's not there. The voice was not a requirement for this show. Like that's not,
Wow.
I just did it. And so people think that that's what it is. But understudies and standbys and people on tour, like everyone is doing a different Beetlejuice, and that's how it should be. Um,
Right.
and with School of Rock, it was like, how much energy could I output? Like it was just,
Right.
I want people to know, I want people to walk out going, there's no way he does that 8 shows a week.
Yeah.
Which is how I felt about a lot of performers that I saw. You feel like that show tonight was specifically the only one he's doing this month, and it was for me, and it was that, and I just think it's, that's my new goal. Whether I do something subtle that seems impossible or something really over the top like that voice,
Yeah.
um, it just keeps it fun for me, and it keeps it interesting. And especially when you do a show hundreds of times, that's like, you have to do something. So
Hmm.
continuing to work on the voice, it wasn't, I mean, it was riding a bike a little bit, like you got the pedals in order and all that, you could figure it out, but
Yeah.
making it hard for myself, making it interesting, trying new stuff. And that inevitably like helped the voice, helped the performance, kept it fresh. So, I appreciate when people, also Eli, I liked that you said you could tell that there was effort there,
Yeah.
because a lot of people will say, oh, it's so natural, it's so effortless. And I'm like, you have missed the whole point of all of that. You've discounted now all the hard work I've done when you just think it
Right.
comes. I was like, you think this comes naturally to anyone? So
You
I
try it.
appreciate, well, and I can, it's
Right.
obviously, yes, as performers, as fellow performers, you understand.
Right.
Like, I don't think
Totally.
outside people just understand that we're not just born with a bunch of talent that we just get to like divvy out over the course of years. We discover it, we rediscover it, we challenge it,
Yeah.
we get stronger, we get weaker. So we work with that. And so I
Hmm.
appreciate when people can understand how much effort it takes to look effortless,
Yeah. Right.
but it's
And
not.
that's where the rehearsal, that's the importance of it all,
Yeah.
to become effortless or
No,
look effortless at
it's a
least.
theater is a full contact sport. I think people forget that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you, as a performer yourself, and kind of, I guess, moving forward in your career, between, I mean, even Mr. Wormwood and Dewey and Beetlejuice, these are all like charactery,
Yeah, right.
characters, do you kind of feel like, that is you? Like, how do you define yourself as an actor? Are you a character performer, or do you feel like you're kind of typecast that way? Or like, what is that? And moving forward, is that kind of what you want to continue doing? Is the charactery stuff, or is it something more serious, or what?
Well, first of all, I mean, if it turns out that I am typecast that way, that's perfectly fine because it means I keep getting cast. Number one.
Yeah, period.
Number two, yeah, I think probably if I had to define something, I would say that I am more of a character actor now than anything. I really enjoy disappearing a little bit into
Yeah.
something, bringing parts of yourself to it. I think you have to; it's inevitable. But I do enjoy,
Sure.
being somebody else and wearing somebody's skin. That being said,
Yeah.
I just have done a few things recently where I got to play human beings. Like I'm on this season of The Blacklist right now that's airing.
Yes.
And I get to play a guy, just a regular dude. And like, that's been fun and discovering that it's not boring. And like, I think that
Right.
I've gotten so used to the idea that if I'm not playing something insane, it'll just be boring. And that's not true. And so I'm learning how to, I think, do more, I guess you'd call it serious, but like still, just more normal sort of base, like grounded characters. I'm trying to find how to
Yeah.
make that layering exciting too. And I am succeeding, I think. I think there's like parts I definitely want to play. I have something coming up where I'll be playing a human, but
Oh, great.
I'm playing somebody notable. I'm playing a person that exists.
Oh
And
God,
so,
that's
and
fun.
I, and once we are done recording, I will tell you what it is.
Yeah,
But,
that's
but
okay.
I don't know when this is coming out, so this not been announced. Uh,
Yeah,
but
no
yes,
pressure.
I think it is still a character role because I'm playing somebody else, and I think that is where I feel most at home currently.
Yeah,
And I think it's where I'll feel most at home for a long time, just because it's fun for me to throw spaghetti and see what's there,
yeah,
and I also like making people laugh, so that's never going to go away.
totally. Yeah, because I was always curious because you kind of talked about how much you love improvising and all the things like that.
Yeah,
It is so you, and you flourish in those types of roles. So I was curious to hear how you felt about it all.
I would be
But very cool.
interested. I would be interested in doing something that is like something I've been averse to for a long, like a Shakespeare thing, like
Yeah.
seeing what that feels like to have to be beholden to text.
Yeah, like low key though, like I see you. Like I feel like it'd be sick if you played Sweeney Todd. Like if you replaced Josh Groban or something. Like
Uh,
I want to see that. Like that's crazy.
well, I would hope they'd be comfortable with me singing it up the octave because I can't sing those notes. But
Right.
I would happily do like the sort of rock tenor version of Sweeney Todd. Which
Period.
again, like listen, we're all doing weird adaptations of things. Who says that Sweeney Todd can't be a rock tenor who's funny? Uh,
Listen, I will be there. I will buy a ticket. I promise. Like I promise there will be people in seats, Like
yeah,
I'm there.
I think that now I've been given a lot of like goodwill, like good faith to like
Yeah.
do things that I want to do. So I'm happy to say, and then, again, I keep using this word, but it's true. Like I've earned, I think, my success for sure. But I do think that
Yeah.
I also am very privileged to have been given the opportunity to
Mm.
do it. And so I'm hoping that I can continue to kind of make good on those things and be a bit more choosy to do
Right.
something that is a little more like off the beaten path of something. Not to say that what I'm doing is easy or comes naturally, obviously, but to do something where it is so outside of my comfort zone. I have felt in my comfort zone for a long time
Mhm.
doing these things.
Sure.
So there is a bit of that like sadistic, masochistic quality of like, let's do something that scares me. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But I feel it.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. You want to keep it fresh. You want to exercise new muscles and all the things. It's
Yeah.
great. Um, well, you're doing a lot right now. I mean, you're writing your own show.
Right.
You have the blacklist. You have all these things coming up, and you also have this new project that you're working on. Well, I guess that you already worked on, and it's just coming out very soon next week. And it's called Louburger and the Wizard of Friendship. Their cast album. We got to
Yes.
talk about it. You are
We have to talk
playing.
about it.
You're playing Flim Flam the Sausage Man. Is that correct?
That is correct. You didn't
Is that how you pronounce it?
you read that perfectly.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
didn't even know if I was announcing it or pronouncing it right. I'm obsessed. I'm intrigued. I'm all the things.
Yep.
And talk to me about this and this cast album.
Totally. It's the weird. I'm glad we're talking about this. I love that we went from me talking about how I want to play grounded roles to now you play Flim Flam the Sausage Man. That's its own. I
Right.
mean that should be the commercial for this podcast.
Done.
First of all, I got to work with the Try Guys, right, during Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet Keith and all, and even Alex and Huey, who make
Mm.
up Louburger. Um, and we just became like light texting buddies, like over like
Okay.
comedy stuff. And then once they started getting this show up off Broadway, they were asking for advice because they'd never done it. So I was, slightly helpful in talking about how to do a show. They'd never done a long run before. Um,
Mm.
and so then they asked me if I would play in the show Keith's dad, which is like this big cameo
Oh
part
my
that went
god.
through. So a lot of people played it. Me, Rob McClure, Elizabeth Teeter
Oh
played
my
Keith's
god.
dad in a performance. And so I just kicked my computer. I hope everything's still fine.
Yeah, you're good.
And so then we just became like kind of entertainment buddies. And then when this album came out, they asked me if I'd play a part which I did not play in the show.
Right.
And I it's very hard to say no to because they're so fun and they have such a cool fan base and they're hilarious, and any chance I could get to hang out with them was going to be a yes.
Yeah.
And then this character is, I mean, it's the craziest show.
Yeah.
Louburger and the Wizard of Friendship. I mean, it's the wackiest title for an even wackier show. And Flim Flam, the Sausage Man. He is a hot dog looking, a
Right.
sausage in a bun character
Cute.
who sort of guides them, is sort of like almost like Dobby the house elf meets Gollum meets like Jiminy Cricket. Like he kind of like guides them through this world of
Oh my god.
no friendia land, where they have
I'm
to like
obsessed
then
already.
learn how to be friends through this journey. And when you listen to the album, you will understand that Flim Flam goes through a pretty good soul searching through the show and decides to sort of come out as who he really is. And I'm not going to spoil what that is,
Oh.
but there's a very big kind of twist that you definitely see coming, which is why it's funny. And once it's finally revealed, it is a very vulgar, wonderful journey, end of a journey. But I can't
Obsessed.
spoil. I will not spoil that for anybody.
No,
You
no,
have
no.
to listen to the album. You have to know the show. And if you know, you know, as people say.
I'm obsessed. That's such a cool thing. It sounds so interesting, and they already released one of their they have a bunch of songs released, and they're kind of like parody, I guess. I
Yeah,
don't
they
know.
are.
Is that kind
Yeah,
of a good way to say it? But that their one song, "It's a Stupid Idea to Put on a Broadway Show," is like so funny
it's great.
because it's so true and it's so real. Like everything they discuss in that song, it's like, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Yeah.
And it's a perfect, like, there are so many comedy shows, even the silliest of comedy shows, like, try and take themselves seriously at some point, like, to make
Yeah.
it like a real theater piece. And I say this with all the love in the world, they didn't attempt that at all.
I
And they
love it.
shouldn't have.
Right.
And the show knew what it was, and it never stopped knowing what it was. And so I commend them for like sticking to their guns and not like bending to like the theater machine to like the last 10 minutes, or like, this is what the show's really about. It's not that. It's just a comedy. And
Right.
it starts as a comedy and it ends as a comedy. You learn nothing from this show. You shouldn't. If you learn anything from the show, you've made a huge mistake. And
Right.
and you should just be having fun. It should take you away. It's exactly what theater does. They're geniuses. They're evil geniuses. And by the way, and I hope they're listening to this, I use the term genius lightly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not every day you just come across one. So,
That's right.
I believe it's June 25th, and I'll re-record that if that's not correct, when the album comes out, and that's going to be on all streaming platforms. You know, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music. Basically, you get to hear from Alex Brightman, you get to hear from all the Louburger guys, you get to hear from Wayne Brady. There's a bunch of fabulous talent on this album, so definitely go check it out.
Very
And that's
lucky
like
to be a part of it.
coming soon. Yeah, it's so cool, and those guys are hilarious. I could totally see you guys getting along. So
Yeah.
I think it's a mashup and a collaboration that everyone it needs to witness and hear about.
Well,
So
I have a question for you.
yeah.
What are you up to post pandemic? What has been going on? What have you like? Who have you turned into? Like, what's one new thing about you that you've kind of figured out about yourself post pandemic? I know everybody has,
Mm,
unless you're the
yikes.
one person who hasn't.
That no, no, no. That's a great question. I've kind of found myself again.
Good.
And in the sense that, like, pre-pandemic, I was a different man in the sense of I was a little boy, prepubescent and all the things.
Sure.
And so I did not sing the entire pandemic, and I told myself that I was just scared,
I
and
understand that.
like I was like, I don't know who I am, and I'd never not known how to sing, and so
Wow.
um felt super lost. But then I started this because I was like, I want to stay creative and I got to figure out how. But I love to talk and I love to just ask questions, and I like to sponge things up, I guess. So I started this, and I started talking to friends, and through them, in these discussions, they inspired me to kind of find myself again and find my craft again, and brought me back to those memories of performing on Broadway, and being a performer, and type of thing. So I
And
feel
you're
like
young,
yeah.
which is amazing. I
So
mean,
so I
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go for it.
I'm not going to interrupt you. I want you to keep going.
No, yeah. So it was just nice that I found myself as, like, because it was a big question of, like, who am I? But now I kind of have been okay with the fact and saying that I am a performer, even though I haven't been on Broadway for, like, what, 6, 7 years. And it was just like, that was kind of hard for me to kind of come to terms with,
Broadway
I
does
feel.
not equal you being a performer. And I think that that's something
Right.
that I think that you're learn. I mean, a lot of people, like, especially when you get lucky, because how old are you?
I'm 20 now.
Right. So, I mean, you really truly were still a child. I mean, when this all happened, and so when you
Yeah.
get lucky early, and you get the talent pays off early, there is a weird correlation between what you believe success is, and I'm sure that, like, that came to you now. Like, you found this podcast, you do all this stuff. Your generation is so crazy ambitious, and it's so cool to
Yeah.
know that you survived this pandemic, because I can't imagine being young and also going through this. Like, I had
Mm.
many years of normalcy, it seemed, before, like, this crazy thing shut us all down. So I commend you. That's why I ask these questions to younger people. Is like, I think it's incredible that you not only, like, made it out the other side, but, like, made it out as an adult. Like, you've evolved, you've
Yeah.
matured, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, and I feel like if it wasn't for the pandemic, like, I don't know, like, it just I don't know how it would have been, like,
No, I
type of
know.
thing,
There's
where it's like I'm now grateful for it, because it's like I all these mental health things kind of arose during the pandemic, and I think that that's
yes.
real for everyone. And I became very OCD, and like, the germophobia was my anxiety was off the charts, like,
Yeah.
all of the things. And so to kind of navigate and understand all of that,
We all
and
got a
go through
chance to
that,
slow
I
down. I
wouldn't.
think that was the big thing, is
Yeah.
that we all got a chance to kind of really do the "who am I" thing, which is like, we all talk about
Yeah.
having the time to do it, and then we all were given so much time to do it that we kind of had to
Yeah.
do it. And I think it's great.
Yeah, but it's such a scary thing. So
Yeah.
that time was, like, necessary, because it was still, like, just towards the end of the pandemic, when kind of things were going back to normal, where it was like, really, like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is definitely who I am now. Like, yeah, I've
That's
pinpointed
wonderful.
it, but it
I'm glad
wasn't
to hear
until,
that.
like, the second year. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it taught me a lot. And being with my family through it all was terrible, but so wonderful through it all. So
I think nobody can't understand that. So I think that that's a great thing.
yeah, it was
All right,
great. We all wanted to
now
rip each other's heads off.
now back to me. It's about me now.
Back to you. Yeah. Well, I mean, do you need to go? Because I don't want to keep you, but I do. I could ask you a Spamalot question if you want to talk Spamalot.
Ask me a Spamalot question, and then at some point I do have to walk my dog. So but I'm here. I'm here for the last question or
Great.
two.
Great. No, we'll keep it to one. I was able to. I was actually at the same. To coincidence, was at the same performance as Elizabeth Teeter in the Kennedy Center.
Ah,
We went to Spamalot, and absolutely crushed the show. That cast with Rob and Leslie and James, like, what a treat that must have been. It's kind of a bunch of improv legends coming together, and you could definitely tell that there was some improvisation going on during the show. So
Yes.
I've got to ask you, what was that kind of process like for you? Because I know you love improvising, and do you remember a moment that was your favorite improv night?
Easily, yes to both questions.
Great.
One is that because the process was so quick,
Hmm.
in the room. I mean, we had like no time to like again, like throwing spaghetti is my thing. Like I go into a room, I turn into a whirlwind, and by the end of it, by the end of the process, we have something. But it takes a month, to get things. We had
Right.
10 days. I don't know. It was crazy, and so improv became a
Oh,
big safety net, for us because we barely knew the show by the time we were performing it, and so we had to like rely on this idea that we know kind of it was like bumper bowling. Like we knew we had a
yeah.
place to go, but we could use the improv as like little bumpers to get us along the way. So again, it's like the fault of my fearlessness is that I don't really care what comes out of my mouth on stage as long as it doesn't offend truly.
Sure.
And so my favorite improv moment of this run, and hopefully with any luck, it's going to transfer to Broadway. I don't know these facts for sure, but like it
Yes.
should. I mean, it's like it's time, and it would be a good cast to do it. So
Yeah.
my favorite was when I was playing the knight who says knee. I got a chance to sort of say something that then James had to repeat, and
Yes.
never was planned. I always kind of figured it out like
Oh,
a minute or two before I came on stage, just to like keep my anxiety up in a good way. And I don't know what night you were there for, but I made him sing the Genie song. I made him sing "Never Had a Friend Like Me" in
oh
front of
my
an
God.
audience. And so like
I was not
not
there
only
that
was
night.
it fun to watch him like figure it out, but it was probably fun for the audience to see this Tony winner sing the song he was famous for. So it was like this really great kind of set of events that took place, and I just was like so overjoyed to be on stage to like give the audience this James moment.
That is so freaking cool.
That was
That
great.
process had to have been crazy. Did it kind of help knowing those guys already? I mean, it was kind of like a Beetlejuice reunion with Rob and you and Leslie. Um,
And I
does that help with the
know,
chemistry and everything?
well, I
Sorry,
know,
go ahead.
yeah, no, not at all. I think we have like a slight delay too, so I think that's what's screwing us up.
Hmm.
But I've known Leslie and Rob, and I knew James from forever ago. James is from my same hometown.
Oh,
Uh,
get out of
so we
here.
actually knew James in California a little bit, not a ton. We know each other a lot now, but we knew of each other. I knew of him. I was a fetus when he was 20.
Yeah.
So uh, that was fun, and also one of my writing partners is Nick Walker, who was in the show as well,
Oh,
and
no
all
kidding.
and then so yeah, and so it was just this cast of friends. We got to like play around for money, like that was what it felt
Oh my
like,
God.
and
I
we
love
would
it.
have. I'm sure it's something we would have done if I asked people to come over to my apartment and do it for free, but we ended up getting
Yeah.
to do it at the Kennedy Center. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it really did help. Actually, you're right. The chemistry that we already had built and had made day one not feel like day one.
Right. That's awesome, and you could totally tell as an audience member. It's like
Oh,
they
good.
only had 10 days, and it's like they're putting together a masterpiece. But you're so right. I hope it does come to Broadway.
Me too.
That cast was brilliant, and more people deserve to see that show with this cast
Thank
because it
you.
was one of my favorite nights at the theater. Truly,
What a
yeah,
nice
no,
thing to
for sure.
say. Thank you.
Of course. Well, Alex, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on here. Best of luck with the new projects and the writing projects that are so exciting.
Thank you.
Everything that you do as a performer, you've inspired so many people. So I appreciate you taking the time today and kind of letting them know more about you as a person,
Well,
and
right
not
back
as
at
just
you.
like on the stage. Yeah, you definitely have a lot to take a bow for. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I will take. I'm sitting, but I will take I'll do a nod. Yeah.
Period. Thank you.